Hello and welcome to Vintage Times. My name is Kathy Rager. I'm the Senior Services Coordinator for Downers Grove Township and the host of this program. On today's program, we're going to be talking about your aches and pains and what you can do about it. And as we age, some of those nagging pains that we feel in our joints, back, neck, arms, and legs can start to act up a little bit more than they usually do. And some of us, probably have that interfering with our everyday life. I know that I've had that issue. Many people just bear up and consider it a natural part of the aging process, while others may medicate, and still more may seek answers from their doctors and therapists. The title of today's program is When Should I Seek Physical Therapy? And my very special guest is Mary Lou Savino. Welcome to the program, Mary Lou. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are?
Sure. I'm Mary Lou Savino. I actually live here in Downers Grove. I am a physical therapist assistant, so I am licensed in the state to perform physical therapy. I am also a certified personal trainer and a certified Pilates instructor. And so I've been doing physical therapy for almost 27 years. And I've been open in private practice for almost 11 years now.
Wow, it sounds like you have a lot of background in this, from exercise to therapy. So can you tell us a little bit about what kinds of therapy are out there? And why would someone go for therapy?
Sure. So there are lots of different types of physical therapy. I am an outpatient physical therapy center, and there's obviously inpatient physical therapy. There's different types of specialties. There's pediatric specialties, there's cardiac specialties, there's neurological specialties. So there are lots of different specialties within physical therapy. But outpatient physical therapy is typically for people who have some type of injury or some type of pain, and they need to go to an outpatient physical therapy center to help heal themselves.
So, and as I said earlier, a lot of us experience aches and pains. Mm-hmm. And, I've, maybe pass it off, especially as you're aging. You think, well, I'm going to have those aches and pains. I'm getting older. Your joints get overused and all that.
Right.
But, how do I identify something that might be just something I should ignore to something that maybe I should do something about?
So don't ignore any of it. That is the number one biggest single mistake people make, is to ignore a problem of pain or an issue that is causing them to have decrease in function. So that's always a sign. It's your body going, tap, 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 tap. Something's not quite right, and we need to maybe take care of it now before it gets worse. So if you've got, shoulder pain, or you can't lift your arm as high as you used to be able to, or you have difficulty getting in and out of bed or in and out of the car, and it's painful, or walking for a certain length of time starts to cause you pain in your back, or there's knee issues, pain with going up and down stairs, those are all cues to you. Your body's telling you you might need to do something about this. And ignoring it, like I said, is really the biggest mistake, and we all ignore it first. It's really common, and I'd say actually any kind of problem we have in life, the first thing we do is typically ignore it. That doesn't really help for very long. We ignore it and it's like, okay, it's going to go away. Sometimes the pain can temporarily go away, but it'll come back if there's a real issue. Our bodies are really, really good at protecting itself. So a lot of times the way we move and how we sit, stand, walk, exercise, lift, we can do those wrong for a really long time by substituting, and eventually our body will start to tell us. But it'll protect itself for a long time. If it thinks it can't do something, it'll do it in a different way, and eventually that can start to cause us problems because the muscles are not doing what they're supposed to be doing in the right order, the right movement pattern. So don't ignore it. It's one thing if I go, I stubbed my toe and I have pain. That's different. But if something is really causing me pain, or I'm having a problem with being able to do something, that's a clue. Your body is trying to give you a clue. And so then you should talk to your doctor, talk to a physical therapist. We are really the musculoskeletal experts. We're the movement there. We're really the people who work with movement. So if you're having those kinds of issues, talk to us about it.
So I heard you say
musculoskeletal.
Thank you. So what does that entail then? What are you looking at? I guess it sounds pretty apparent, but can you explain that a little further?
Really, so muscle and bone. So it's how our bodies move in space. When we say musculoskeletal, so you wouldn't come to us if you had a stomach ache, but if your shoulder hurt, your elbow hurt, or something wasn't moving correctly, or your joints felt achy and stiff, and they were giving you a problem when you were doing things, those are what we mean by musculoskeletal issues versus, I've got a sore throat, or I've got, then you're going to look to a doctor. So in physical therapy, those are the kinds of things we deal with. And so versus, things that might be of a neurological nature or things that might be of a doctor's under a doctor's scope.
Now, something else you said kind of struck me too, that, obviously a lot of people ignore because, again, I think that it's very common for seniors and others to think, well, it's just part of aging, and
right.
And then who am I going to go to? Where do I go? How do I go about even doing something about it? And don't bother. And
right.
Perhaps they're a little more sedentary and maybe don't, they know they should be doing something about it, but maybe don't. But what struck me is that you were saying that you might be, your body has a unique way of protecting itself, and that you might be using other muscles, and that maybe masks it.
Right.
So do you find that happens a lot? So do people find that they have other, problems? How do you identify that? Okay, it's maybe not this problem, but this is masking it because of that.
Right. So maybe the underlying cause. So when we do an evaluation, we're going to look at all of these things. We're going to look at how the body moves, what the signs and symptoms are, and what the actual underlying cause of it is. So, I might have tingling or pain down in my hands and my finger, and so I might think I have carpal tunnel, but that really could be coming from the neck. So we have to really rule out what those things are and find the root cause of that issue. And then we have to really work towards relieving that and strengthening the areas that need to be stronger, stretching the things that need to be stretched out because they might be too tight, and so that might involve manual therapies, it might involve therapeutic exercise, it might involve modalities like electrical stim or ultrasound, but we have to get to the cause and find out, again, where it's really stemming from. And so sometimes an issue down in the hand or the elbow might really be coming from the neck or the back.
So interesting, because so in other words, never assume
right.
that you know what's wrong with you.
Right.
You really need to have the experts tell you.
You do, and
you
need to get a diagnosis. You need to, whether it's from the therapist or your doctor, we need to know really what is the cause of that issue so that we can fix it.
How do people come to you? Do they usually get referred from an orthopedic doctor, from their regular doctor? Do they come straight to you? How does that happen?
So they really can do all of those things. They can be referred from their family doctor, their internist, their podiatrist, the orthopedic doctor, a dentist, in issues of TMJ and neck issues, and they can come directly to us. So even here in Illinois, we have direct access for evaluation and treatment in physical therapy. So they can call us, come directly to us. Almost all physical therapy places take insurance, as do we. So we can do insurance verifications. You can come in and we can do an evaluation. We can tell you what we think is going on. We can notify the doctor. And so they can come to us any of those ways.
Is this something new? Because it seems like, there's insurance gets more and more complicated.
Right.
There's Medicare, as you're 65 or older, you have access
right.
to that, and supplemental policies. You have, still businesses insurances. You have the marketplace insurance. So I'm sure it gets very confusing, I think, for a lot of people.
It does.
But you're saying you can come directly to a therapist, a physical therapist? You don't need
yes.
a referral?
You don't need a referral anymore in Illinois, and that's new this year. So we are like the 46th state to finally enact direct access to physical therapy in Illinois. We had direct access for evaluation, but now we also have the access to evaluate and treat. So it helps to really get you into the system faster and to help heal faster. So what was really happening, and even we've recognized this through the years and all the research studies, is that people were seeing their family doctor and then being referred to an orthopedic and then having x-rays and MRIs and being given medications and injections. before being sent to physical therapy. And so this costs the person, the patient, and the system a lot of money when sometimes you can avoid those things. You might not need an MRI, you might not need an X-ray, you might, but if physical therapy isn't working, then you might need those things. But especially in the realm of medication injections, since that has really taken over, in the world to help treat pain. And what they're realizing is, in the studies, is that seeking physical therapy first really helps to reduce that pain and correct that problem without maybe needing medications and injections.
Wow, I never thought of that, because it seems like, and of course we have an opioid crisis right now with
Yes.
painkillers,
Yeah.
and so does medication have its place in this?
Absolutely. I mean, there are times where we need anti-inflammatories or we need pain medications or steroids and injections. So it can depend on where you are in the process. But if you've exhausted all these other things and you haven't tried physical therapy, it's a really great option that does not involve medications and injections. So there are chronic issues that do really need medications and injections and things like that. And there's even acute issues. We do acute care very well in the United States. So you may have an acute issue that some medications can help with. But again, even with the medications and or the injections, we have to get to the root cause of the problem and see if we can help fix that issue so that it doesn't keep reoccurring.
So the medications can be helpful,
Yes.
and cause some initial relief, but it's not the answer necessarily to the question.
It
You're
may
not
not-
solving the problem.
It may not necessarily solve the problem.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Now,
Yeah.
are there you said this is new in the state where people can go directly to therapy.
Right.
And the cost, I would imagine, is less, because you have to go to like you say, go to your regular doctor, and then maybe he sends you the orthopedic doctor,
Right.
and then you go, they might refer you to physical therapy.
Right.
And so, 1 month later, when you probably needed to, get that physical therapy, 4 weeks
Right.
ago, you're now maybe getting it,
And that's exactly what the issue was. What they were finding is it could be, especially, that they've got so many people into the system needing to see doctors. It could take 1 to 2 months to see, a specialist. So by the time you've waited all this time, you're living in pain, and that dysfunction of whatever that issue is that's going on might continue to get worse. So they really want to get people into physical therapy faster. Of course, we will always refer to specialty or to physicians when we find that it's needed. If it's not within our scope, we want to help you work with a doctor that's going to work for you and help you get better.
So what kind of, based on that, it sounds like this is a real breakthrough for our
It
state,
is, yeah.
that people can get to that treatment a lot sooner without going through 3 or 4 doors to get to it.
Absolutely.
But what kind of credentials do you need then in your business? Or, you were saying you might have to refer. When
Right.
do you know it's not within your scope, or how do you do that?
So in Illinois, they're all doctors of physical therapy, and throughout the United States. So physical therapy started off as a bachelor's program, moved to a master's, and is now a doctorate program for the last 10 or 15 years. So physical therapists have doctorate degrees. But we do have, obviously, license. So you have to get licensed in your state to practice. And so we know, based on what our scope in physical therapy is, we've got obviously regulations. So it's not like you can come to us and we could just see you forever and you never get better, and this is really a lot of fun. So we have regulations on that in every state. So if somebody isn't progressing within a certain amount of time, they're going to be referred to the proper specialist. So we're going to work with the doctors no matter what, whether somebody comes via a physician referral or not. We want to work with you, your physicians, your healthcare provider in general, so that we can help you get better faster. So if somebody comes and they didn't have a doctor, that's fine. But if they weren't progressing, we would refer them to the type of doctor or healthcare provider that they would need. And there are regulations in place for that.
Well, that's good. So, there's checks and balances.
There's checks and balances.
Probably on both ends, with the doctors as well as you.
Absolutely.
So do you find that, with this change in law being this new, do you find that you get more clients, do you think more clients go directly to physical therapy? You only have your own practice to view this, the
Right.
lens through, but,
Yeah.
do you think that, people are coming more as a referral, or coming more directly on their own?
More people are still coming as a part of a referral because it's probably not really well known yet. So this just happened August 16th of this year, was signed into law.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
for
very
us. Yeah,
recent.
very recent, and it was effective immediately. So people are still relying on their physicians. So we actually, have very good relationships with the physicians in our area, and so we talk to them and we tell them what's happening in the world of physical therapy. So they're starting to go, oh, okay, so people can come directly to you, and we might need to work together because this person might not be appropriate here with us, or we need some more help with them. So it is relatively new. People still come via mostly referral. I think we are working to educate the public to let them know you can come to us, any physical therapy place, wherever you choose to go, without a physician's referral first. But that doesn't mean we're not going to work with your healthcare provider and your physician. But it is so new that a lot of people don't know that they can do that. They know that they can go directly to a chiropractor, but they don't know that they can go directly to a physical therapist as well.
Yeah, I think I didn't know that. So
Right.
I'm glad you made me aware, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that didn't realize that. And I think that it definitely has benefits. I've actually had some recent physical therapy myself, and it was like a little miracle. So
yay.
I can definitely advocate for that because it is very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, what kinds of therapy are there? I mean, first of all, do you do x-rays? Do you do x-rays at your...
We don't do x-rays. And in physical therapy, we do not do x-rays. We rely on the physicians and the other healthcare providers for x-rays and MRIs. We might recommend them if we feel there might be some kind of issue that, that might be going on that we want more information about. So we might recommend them to the patient or the client and say, let's talk to your doctor, let's see it, maybe an x-ray is in order or an MRI is in order, and let's look a little bit deeper into this. But we don't do x-rays and MRIs ourselves.
Okay, so what kind of, if as a new patient coming into your clinic, what might be some of the offerings there to help clients? What types of physical therapy are there?
So in physical therapy, we're typically seeing people with back pain, neck pain, shoulder and rotator cuff issues, tendonitis, sprains, strains. It might be hip, knee, ankle, and foot, even contusions, muscle contusions, those types of things. Mm-hmm. So those are the types of things we're going to see, in an orthopedic clinic. The other things we see are issues of like vertigo and vestibular issues. So those are where people are dizzy, whether it's acutely, like they've got little crystals in their ears that fly out and cause them to be dizzy, or they've got chronic vertigo issues that cause them to be dizzy more often than not. And as well as balance issues. So we see a lot of people with balance and gait issues, and that will tend to be in our older population. So those are the types of things we're going to typically see in physical therapy. I think people who take most advantage of physical therapy are maybe the more middle-aged group. They're more looking into taking care of themselves. And so those are the people we're going to see with neck, back, shoulder, hip and knee issues, ankle. The younger population are probably more sports-related or back issues that might be disc-related, acute disc issues. So those are the kinds of things you would come to see us for. Or more athletic people who have an injury because of their sport and need to get back to that sport, or post-surgically. So it might be somebody has a total knee replacement or a hip replacement, or they've had an ankle surgery or an ACL or an MCL repair at the knee, or a meniscal repair, rotator cuff surgery. Those are the kinds of things that people are going to be coming into an outpatient therapy center for.
Now, what do you see? You mentioned the older population and and dizziness, which I never would have thought a therapist would have anything to do with.
Yeah.
But what kind of things do you see in the older population when they come in? And we have quite a range of older,
right.
from 55 on up to 95 and more. So like maybe in the 75 and up range, what do you see there?
So in the 75 and up range, again, a lot of neck and back issues, because we do become more arthritic as we age, which, by the way, doesn't mean we have to just accept it. I mean, we can't cure arthritis. We can help bring down inflammation, which itis is an inflammation, but we can also strengthen the areas around the joints to help keep your body strong, to support the structures, and we can help increase range of motion for those types of issues for better function. So the other thing we also see in that 75 and up population are going to be issues of balance, where there's a possibility of a fall risk, or they've fallen and they've hurt themselves. So it'll be a combination of those things, balance and falls and gait, basically walking disorders. We need those kinds of things, because if we don't practice issues of balance or strengthening exercises in that population, we're going to be more likely to have a fall in the future. And I'd say the other thing we see in that population is total joint replacement. So because our population is living longer, the aging population lives longer, we're seeing more and more total knee replacements, total hip replacements, even total shoulder replacements. So we're seeing a lot of post-surgical in that age range. So all of those things together, but I would say very big part of that is people staying strong, keeping their balance, and preventing falls.
What causes older people to have less balance, because I notice, and I have to watch myself, that you start shuffling a little bit more, and, I'm definitely more wary in the wintertime now because, when you get something icy, I'm very, very careful, but I don't know if I'm being, not careful enough, maybe the shuffling is not good, so are you teaching them how to walk, or how are you teaching that? How are you doing that?
We're strengthening the muscles because the balance
And what muscles are those? Like, where would you...
So it's the core, the hip, and the ankles. So it's really a combination of those. So it's not really just our core for balance, but it's also the hip musculature and the ankles. Because if we're not picking up our feet and we're shuffling, we could be more likely to actually trip on something because we're not lifting our feet. So the muscles in the front of the shin can get weaker. The muscles at the hip get weaker, which are really our gluteal muscles, because we tend to sit on them now more than ever before. And so we really need to strengthen those muscles to really help improve balance and gait, which seems like kind of crazy, right? Like, we don't think about that. We think, it's balance. Balance is a use it or lose it. So not only do we do strengthening type exercises, but we have to do specific balance exercises, both what we call static on a firm surface that doesn't move, and dynamically on surfaces that do move or are squishy. So you have to do both types of those things in order
to strengthen those muscles,
to make the balance better, because the body has to really feel it coming through the feet. It's basically all the senses, the eyes, the sound, the sensation. So it's not just one thing, it's really multi.
See, and I would never have thought of that. I mean, that's really important, because you're really affecting, like you say, your stability, your core, and your ankles. And I see that over and over in the senior population, and the senior population, at least in our township, is the fastest growing population there is in the county and the township.
Wow.
So I know they say by 2030, there's going to be the people that are 65 and over will outnumber the younger population.
Wow.
So you're going to have a lot of business, I think, there, but it's interesting that, therapy can really help you to stay mobile.
It can really help you stay mobile, and we see this all the time because, again, we think like, oh, there's nothing we can do about this, but there really are things we can do about this. And then, so you come to therapy, we teach you how to do this, we help make that better. You have to maintain it. If we discharge you and you don't do it, it's going to happen again. So you have to maintain it, but you can always come in for a tune-up. So that's the other thing, is if you start to slack off and things start to get worse again, you can always come back into your therapist for a tune-up.
And they shouldn't be embarrassed to do that. I mean,
no.
It's probably best that they come back, kind of get back on track, know what the exercises are to take. And,
We'd rather have people come back sooner versus later. I mean, the longer you wait, the longer you ignore it, the harder it is to fix. So come in sooner rather than later.
So if you wanted to, what would be your major message to the senior population on what they can do for themselves in regards to their aches and pains and physical therapy?
Yeah, so yes, we get older and we get some more aches and pains, but don't have that self-limiting belief that you're gonna progressively get old and stiff and you're not gonna be able to do anything. It does get better, so don't just accept that. It's okay to come to a therapist and learn what to do for yourself. You don't have to just sort of wither away. There's really no point in that. Our bodies need to move. It was made to move. And so especially for our 65 and older, our Medicare population, I know sometimes they worry about their benefits with Medicare.
Yeah.
I don't want them to worry about
cost.
that.
Yeah, the cost.
The cost.
That's huge. That is huge.
They've also changed since the beginning of the year, the benefits. They no longer have a therapy cap. It used to be a dollar amount. I know this is new. Nobody knows.
Oh, that's really important.
Yeah.
State this again. Okay.
There is not a cap on your services for therapy anymore. It has been permanently repealed by Congress, and it was effective January 1 of this year. So there are thresholds, and they might ask for medical records to look at medical necessity. But that's really on us as the providers to make sure we're documenting correctly for our patients. So they might say, oh, you've used X number of dollars, and so this is a threshold, and we want to, just check and make sure this is medically necessary. But that's something that we work with. So that's not something the patient really needs to worry about. We'll tell you if it's not medically necessary and it's not going to get covered.
So you're really on top of that, because I know a lot of seniors worry about that.
They do.
Because we get them in their office and they talk about that,
right.
About not being able to afford something, and you would hate for them not to do some outreach to get help for themselves.
Absolutely.
To live out their lives a little bit more,
right.
More stable.
Right. And this is something even the doctors aren't completely aware of yet, because it's not like they sent out this letter and said, hey, by the way, we're repealing the Medicare cap on therapy services, so if you need them, you can still have them even if you've hit this threshold. So they're not going to say that, because that that could cost them more money. But we know that in the world of therapy, we follow these things. The American Physical Therapy Association and the other associations in healthcare follow this. So, and so I don't want that population to think like, oh, I can't get the services because I went to therapy because I had a total joint replacement this year and I used all my outpatient services. That's not necessarily the case. If it's medically necessary.
So if they feel that it's still necessary, they're not right where they need to be yet.
Right.
That there is no cap on the dollar amount or the number of visits.
Right.
They would still have to pay whatever their portion is, or what. But it's,
right. So if they had a copay or a coinsurance, or most people on Medicare have a supplemental as well. But if they don't, so the same rules apply on insurance regulations for payment.
Well, that's some really important information that you brought out today.
I really think it is, because I get calls all the time and they're like, well, I had an injury earlier this year and I used all my therapy services, and so I'll tell them, let me do a check on it for you. If this is medically necessary, whether it's the same issue or a different issue, it'll still be covered.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's important to know. How would you suggest we get the word out there?
AARP actually has really good articles about this and the changes in Medicare coverage. I've been trying to inform the doctors that we work with to let them know that if they have patients that still need physical therapy, that they can get those services because of the therapy cap repeal. And so those are the big ways. So we're just trying to really educate the community, the public, the physicians, the healthcare providers, so that they know that even in that older population on Medicare benefits, they can still get the services that they need.
Well, thanks so much for the information you brought here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll tell you, we do partner with some of these agencies and organizations, and I think it's all about kind of a symbiotic partnership between the doctors, the physical therapists,
yes.
the community, the residents,
absolutely.
And these organizations to get the word out.
Absolutely.
So people aren't suffering in silence, and really make
Don't
sure
do it.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
And bringing some of this information to us.
Oh, my pleasure.
So we'll have you back again, and we can talk a little bit more about some of the things you do there. I know we didn't cover everything, but I think we got some important news out there.
Absolutely.
So again, thank you so much for coming
Thank
today.
you.